I get asked about skills, MCP, and agents a lot in the context of AI, and there's usually some confusion about which is which and what each of them do exactly. Well, they are related, but they're definitely three different things, and I thought it might be helpful to quickly explain those differences. So, skills, MCP, and agents. To explain what each one is and how they work together, maybe not surprisingly, I'm going to use a musical analogy. And so the skills are the sheet music or the melody for the song. The MCP is the instrument that can be used to make the sound of the notes. And the agent is a musician that actually does the proper playing of the song using the instrument and the melody. And here's the short version. Skills define what good work looks like. It defines what the song should sound like. MCP is how the work actually gets done. It's how the actual note is played and made and the sound is created. And the agent is the thing directing the work, or the musician that's actually playing the song using the instrument and the melody to create it properly. So now let's take them one at a time. Skills are the knowledge layer. They hold the conventions, patterns, and structure that tell a model how things should be done in your domain. And something that surprises people is that a skill isn't code. It's a folder with a markdown file called skill.md, along with whatever supporting material the model might need. So that could include reference docs, example files, a schema, maybe a few scripts the agent can run when it's useful. And the skill file itself is just written instructions in plain English, explaining when to use the skill, what the conventions are, what to avoid and not do, and pointers to the other files when the agent needs more detail. And so it's closer to an onboarding documentation for a new engineer than it is to traditional software. And so let's use a real-world example for these. I work at Prismatic and I like my job, so not surprisingly, I'm going to use the example of a developer building a connector on Prismatic's embedded iPaaS platform to wire their product up to some other system. So without a skill, a coding agent kind of knows what a Prismatic connector looks like from whatever it's seen on the public internet. It'll guess at the file structure and guess at the SDK methods and probably hallucinate a few things that don't exist. But with our skill, the agent knows the actual project layout, the real SDK signatures, how authentication is configured, and the conventions we want developers to follow. And so it's the difference in a way to reading sheet music you've practiced for a song and making stuff up in the key of the song, hoping it'll sound pretty close. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. And that is basically the hands or the instrument, and it's how the AI actually touches real tools and takes action instead of just talking about action. This is the piece that connects the agent to your actual platform. A skill can tell the agent everything there is to know about your SDK and your conventions, but on its own, it can't log into your system, it can't call your APIs, it can't change anything in the real world. It's just reference material. An MCP server is what exposes the real operations, the CLI commands, the SDK methods, the platform APIs the agent can actually invoke against a live instance. And so back to our connector example, the Prismatic platform, I like my job. The skill tells the agent what a good Prismatic connector should look like, but it can't actually create one. Our MCP server gives the agent tools it can call to scaffold a new connector in the developer's actual Prismatic instance, publish it, and run a test invocation against a real flow, and read back the result. And so those are real commands hitting a real platform, not the agent describing what it would do in a perfect world if it had the ability to affect that world. And so skills tell the model what good looks like, and MCP is what lets it actually do the thing. The agent is the doer, the director, the musician playing the instrument. It's the thing that puts the knowledge and the tools to work to complete a task. It reads the skill, calls the MCP tools, checks its work, and keeps going until the task is done. And mechanically, an agent is basically a loop. It takes a goal, figures out the next step, calls a tool, looks at the result, and decides what to do next. And that cycle keeps running until the goal is met or the agent gives up. And to do the figuring out part, the agent uses a model, something like Claude Opus or Sonnet or Gemini. And the model is the reasoning engine the agent leans on each step, but the agent is what holds the goal, tracks what's happened so far, and keeps the work moving across many steps. If you've ever used Claude Code or something similar, you can see this as it actually creates a plan and then executes that plan as it goes. And so back to our connector example, a developer opens Claude Code and says, build me a connector for this API. And the agent pulls in our skill so it knows what a good Prismatic connector looks like. It uses our MCP server to scaffold the project, write the code, publish the connector, and run a test invocation. And if the test fails, it reads the error, adjusts, and tries again. And so that loop, read, act, check, repeat, that's the agent. If the developer didn't write the code, didn't run the commands, didn't babysit each step, they described the outcome and the agent worked toward it. And so one last thing worth saying, an agent is a pattern, not a head count. It's a way of working, not a person or a seat that you're replacing. So how do these fit together? Well, the agent is the actor that's been given some work to do, and skills in MCP are what it uses to complete the work. Skills for judgment, MCP for action. But none of them are as useful by themselves. Skills without MCP is an advisor with no ability to take action, or a melody without an instrument. MCP without skills is action with no judgment, or an instrument that doesn't know what notes to play for the song. And the agent is what's used to actually make it all happen, bring it all together, and produce the result that you're wanting to see, or I guess the song that you're wanting to hear. So that's the quick tour. Just remember, skills have the information of what good work looks like, or is the sheet music or melody of what the song should sound like. MCP does the work and turns that melody into a sound, and the agent is the thing that directs it all, or the musician who uses the instrument and melody to create a song that sounds the way it should. And so hopefully that'll make sense and was useful for you in understanding what these three things are, how they work together. But I'm going to be following this up with videos that go deeper on each of these, including how to actually write a skill, what MCP looks like in practice, and how to think about agents in your own work. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.